Imagine a city of 75,000 people that did not exist on any map, a place where families lived behind fences, mail was censored, and workers operated strange machines without ever knowing what they were building. This was Oak Ridge, America's secret atomic city, in 1942. At the height of World War II, the United States quietly carved this hidden community out of the Tennessee hills as part of the top-secret Manhattan Project, chosen for its isolation, abundant water, and access to power from the Tennessee Valley Authority dams. Oak Ridge was built almost overnight. Entire valleys were cleared, barbed wire fences and guard towers went up, and suddenly a city larger than many state capitals existed officially. It was not on any map. By the end of the war, more than 75,000 people lived and worked there, all sworn to silence. The secrecy was absolute. Workers knew only their small piece of the puzzle, whether turning knobs, monitoring dials, or sorting mysterious materials. Families could not discuss their duties even at the dinner table, and those who asked too many questions risked losing their jobs or worse. Behind the walls, Oak Ridge's true mission was uranium enrichment, a process vital to creating the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The secrecy was so complete that residents' mail carried coded addresses, and outsiders believed Oak Ridge was nothing more than forest land. In reality, this invisible city became the heartbeat of the nuclear age, where ordinary Americans unknowingly labored to build the weapon that would end World War II and usher in the atomic era. Can you imagine an entire city built in a matter of months, complete with schools, homes, and factories, yet kept completely invisible from the outside world? That was the reality of Oak Ridge, where construction began in 1942 with astonishing speed. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers seized over 60,000 acres of farmland in the Tennessee Valley, displacing families who were given only weeks to leave their land. Bulldozers carved roads through forests, and entire neighborhoods sprang up almost overnight. Prefabricated houses, dormitories, and even trailers were assembled to shelter the flood of workers arriving daily. Within a year, the population soared past 30,000 and continued climbing, eventually surpassing 75,000, making Oak Ridge one of the largest cities in Tennessee, despite being erased from maps. The secrecy was suffocating. Residents needed badges to pass checkpoints. Barbed wire encircled the perimeter, and armed guards watched day and night. Even simple activities, like writing a letter or making a phone call, were monitored for any hint of leaked information. Billboards across the city reminded workers, "What you see here, what you do here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here." Most residents had no idea what the sprawling factories and laboratories actually produced. Some worked in massive buildings stretching over 4 football fields long, staring at dials and gauges, but never being told their true purpose. They were told only that their jobs were essential to the war effort and that absolute silence was mandatory. The combination of speed, scale, and secrecy made Oak Ridge unlike any other American city, a place where thousands of ordinary people lived and worked under extraordinary rules, unknowingly shaping the outcome of World War II. What is it like to live in a city where you can't tell your neighbors or even your own family what you do for a living? That was the strange reality of everyday life in Oak Ridge. By 1943, this hidden city was buzzing with activity, yet its people lived under rules unlike anywhere else in America. Residents wore security badges everywhere, even when going to the grocery store or to school. The town had churches, movie theaters, schools, and shops just like any other city, but every entrance and exit was guarded by checkpoints and soldiers. Mail was censored, phones were tapped, and suspicious conversations could lead to questioning or dismissal. Despite these restrictions, Oak Ridge had a surprisingly lively social life. Workers formed baseball teams, attended dances, and watched movies, trying to preserve a sense of normalcy in a very abnormal place. Many were young men and women, fresh out of high school or college, who took jobs without knowing what they were actually working on. They only knew their labor was important to the war effort. To make things stranger, husbands and wives often worked in different sections of the city, unable to share details with each other about their daily routines. Imagine sitting at a dinner table where both spouses spent hours on the same project but were forbidden to talk about it. It was secrecy on an intimate, personal scale. Children grew up thinking this was normal life, fenced in and guarded, with slogans plastered everywhere reminding them of silence. Yet, despite the restrictions, many residents later remembered Oak Ridge fondly, describing it as a close-knit community bound together by mystery, patriotism, and a strange sense of purpose. Imagine walking into a factory the size of 80 football fields and having no idea that what you were working on would change the world forever. That was the daily reality inside Oak Ridge's colossal enrichment plants, where ordinary workers unknowingly fueled the nuclear age. The most famous of these facilities were Y-12, K-25, and S-50, each devoted to the secret mission of separating uranium isotopes. At Y-12, thousands of mostly young women, many barely out of high school, were hired to monitor rows of strange machines known as calitrons. Their only task was to turn dials and keep gauges steady, never told what the machines actually did. Supervisors explained nothing, reminding them that curiosity was dangerous, and silence was patriotic. Meanwhile, at K-25, then the largest building in the world, workers operated a massive gas diffusion system, spreading uranium gas through miles of pipes and filters. The plant was so enormous that some employees joked they got lost just walking to lunch. At S-50, steam-driven processes enriched uranium even further, completing Oak Ridge's role in producing fissile material. Though the workers believed they were simply helping the war effort, their labor directly created the uranium used in the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. The secrecy was so tight that, even when the bomb was revealed to the world, many Oak Ridge residents realized for the first time what they had truly built. Until that moment, they had been the anonymous gears in a machine of history, unaware that their long hours, dial-turning, and endless monitoring had produced the most powerful weapon ever unleashed. What kind of city needs billboards to remind its people to keep silent every single day? In Oak Ridge, secrecy was not just a rule, it was a way of life, enforced with propaganda, patrols, and constant surveillance. From the moment residents entered the fenced city, they were confronted with slogans like "loose lips might sink ships," and "what you see here, what you do here, let it stay here." These weren't idle words. Military police patrolled the streets, phone calls were monitored, and letters home were censored for even the slightest detail. Every worker, from janitors to machine operators, carried a security badge at all times, and being caught without one could mean interrogation or dismissal. People were warned that casual conversations in grocery lines, on buses, even in church, could be overheard by undercover officers planted among them. Fear was constant, but so too was a sense of patriotism, reinforced by government propaganda that cast the residents as heroes making a vital contribution to the war. Many embraced this duty, enduring the silence and restrictions with pride, while others grew restless under the constant watch. Yet the strategy worked. In all the years of the project, not a single leak exposed Oak Ridge's true mission. It remained, until the war's end, one of the most tightly controlled communities in America's history. How do you build a normal life inside a city that technically doesn't exist? Despite the fences, guards, and silence, Oak Ridge thrived as a community. By 1944, the population rivaled that of major Tennessee towns, and the government provided every necessity to keep morale high. Schools, hospitals, churches, theaters, and shopping centers. Families lived in hastily built homes, while single workers crowded into dormitories and trailers. But the city bustled with activity. Baseball leagues, dances, and movie nights offered relief from grueling shifts. Many young women, recruited from across the country, suddenly found themselves in an environment filled with new friends, dancers, and the possibility of love. For some, Oak Ridge felt like an adventure, a chance to meet people from all over America. Yet the city also mirrored the era's harsh inequalities. African American workers and their families were confined to segregated neighborhoods, often in crude, poorly built housing, while white residents enjoyed sturdier accommodations. Even so, within these boundaries, communities formed. Children played in guarded yards, couples married, and families built lives as best they could, bound together by a shared sense of purpose and the ever-present mystery of their work. What if your daily job, turning a dial, checking a gauge, or carrying a clipboard, helped unleash the most destructive weapon in history, without you even knowing it? That was the truth behind Oak Ridge's existence. The sprawling enrichment plants, EDOSA K-25 and S-50, were designed to separate the rare uranium isotope U-235 from natural uranium. Every gram of enriched uranium that Oak Ridge produced was sent to Los Alamos, New Mexico, where scientists were designing the bomb itself. Workers performed their tasks with precision, never told that their efforts were fueling a weapon unlike any the world had seen. In July 1945, the uranium enriched in Oak Ridge was loaded into the bomb known as Little Boy. Weeks later, it was dropped on Hiroshima, destroying the city in seconds and killing tens of thousands instantly. For Oak Ridge's residents, the revelation was shocking. Many learned for the first time that their small, repetitive tasks had been part of building the world's first atomic bomb. Some felt pride, believing their work had saved countless American lives by ending the war quickly. Others felt unease, burdened by the realization that their hidden labor had caused so much destruction. Either way, Oak Ridge had fulfilled its secret mission. It had provided the fuel that launched humanity into the nuclear age. What happens when a city that was erased from maps suddenly becomes headline news across the globe? In August 1945, Oak Ridge's secrecy ended. As the world learned about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, newspapers revealed the astonishing story of the secret atomic city. Reporters described a massive, fenced-off town of 75,000 people that had been hidden for years. Photographs showed young women operating latrines, sprawling factories that dwarfed anything seen before, and families who had unknowingly shaped history. For the first time, residents could finally talk about their work, their city, and their role in ending the war. Many celebrated, proud that their silence and sacrifice had helped win victory. Others were shaken by the reality of what their labor had built. Oak Ridge instantly became a symbol of both American ingenuity and American secrecy, a paradoxical place where ordinary people lived extraordinary lives in service of a cause they never fully understood. The city that once did not exist was now recognized as the birthplace of the atomic age, its story forever tied to both triumph and tragedy. What happens to a secret city once its greatest secret is revealed? For Oak Ridge, the end of World War II marked not an ending but a transformation. With Hiroshima and Nagasaki burned into history, Oak Ridge shifted from a wartime project into a cornerstone of the Cold War. Sprawling plants that had once enriched uranium for Little Boy were expanded to produce nuclear materials for a rapidly growing arsenal. In the 1950s and 1960s, the city was no longer hidden from maps, but it remained a fortress of secrecy, earning the title Atomic Energy Capital of the World. Here, scientists and engineers pushed the limits of nuclear science, working on new weapons even as they explored peaceful uses of atomic power. Oak Ridge became a hub of innovation, contributing breakthroughs in energy, medicine, and materials science. Yet, its identity remained shadowed by the nuclear arms race, its residents proud of their role in defending the nation. Even as they grappled with the fear of global annihilation, what would you feel if you discovered that the job you did in silence helped build the deadliest weapon on Earth? For the people of Oak Ridge, that question lingered long after the war. Workers who had spent years turning dials and monitoring gauges reflected on their experiences with mixed emotions. Some carried immense pride, convinced that their sacrifices had saved lives by ending the war swiftly. Veterans returning home reinforced this belief, thanking Oak Ridge workers for helping secure victory. Others, however, felt deep guilt, haunted by the devastation in Japan and the knowledge that their labor had fueled such destruction. Oral histories collected decades later revealed this divide. Some residents defended their work as necessary for survival, while others confessed to sleepless nights, wondering if their efforts had unleashed more suffering than salvation. For children who grew up behind barbed wire, Oak Ridge was a place of contradictions, a normal town filled with dances, schools, and friendships, yet forever tied to one of history's darkest achievements. What happens when the price of secrecy and progress leaves scars on both people and the land? Oak Ridge's legacy was not only moral but also environmental. In the years after the war, investigators uncovered evidence of radiation leaks, chemical contamination, and toxic waste that had seeped into the soil and waterways. Workers recalled handling hazardous materials without proper protection, only learning later of the health risks they faced. Some developed illnesses linked to radiation exposure, sparking bitter debates about whether the government had sacrificed their well-being for victory. Beyond health concerns, Oak Ridge became a lightning rod for ethical questions about science and war. Critics condemned it as a symbol of destruction, while supporters insisted it was the price of peace and the foundation of nuclear progress. These debates cemented Oak Ridge as both a triumph of ingenuity and a cautionary tale, forcing Americans to reckon with the costs of secrecy and innovation. What becomes of a secret city once its mission of war is over? Today, Oak Ridge has transformed into a place of science, education, and reflection. The city is home to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, ORNL, one of the world's premier research facilities, pioneering discoveries in nuclear energy, climate science, and supercomputing. What was once a hidden wartime outpost has become a modern hub of global innovation, yet reminders of its past remain. The ruins of the colossal K-25 plant stand as monuments to an era when the future of humanity was decided behind fences and guard towers. Museums and memorials preserve the stories of the men and women who built the bomb in silence, allowing visitors to understand the weight of their sacrifice. Oak Ridge now embraces its identity as the secret city, teaching future generations about the power and peril of science. It is a place where history and innovation coexist, where the shadows of secrecy give way to the light of knowledge, and where the legacy of the atomic age remains etched into the hills of Tennessee. From a hidden city to a global laboratory, Oak Ridge stands as a reminder that even ordinary people, in extraordinary circumstances, can shape the destiny of the world.